Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. We're a bunch of mega fans giving you the news, discussion, and of course, a whole lot of opinions about Brandon's works and the Cosmere. I'm Eric, and joining me is Ian.
Hey, I'm Weiry.
Also joining us is Evgeni.
Hi, I'm Argent, and I successfully returned from JordanCon, where I had a lot of fun, and we'll do a quick recap in a moment. But I do have something to show you, dear. Well, dear listeners, I have nothing to show to you because my thing is showing not. Anyway,
Your thing is showing not? What?
It's almost like it's called show and tell for a reason.
Not show, not and tell?
Yeah, so listeners, I can't show you the thing, but I can tell you a thing. And viewers, I can do the full gradient of the show and tell for you. Like, you just... Okay, so here's the thing.
That is pretty great.
You drew a mustache.
Amazing.
No. Yeah.
We're glitching. Anyway.
It's going into the spiritual realm.
But yeah, so an attendee of the con by the name of Joy printed a few of these faces of Brandon.
More than a few.
Yeah.
And so they're fans. So like I can fan myself with Brandon because I'm a Brandon fan.
No, I think that's the Brandon fan.
Well, yeah, but
watch this be the one episode Brandon actually listens to. You open with that, and then you go like, Evgeni would say stupid things like that. That sounds.
I mean,
about right.
to be fair, this is on brand both for me and for Brandon. So
that's true.
And so I gave him the thing to sign, and he decided to because I didn't choose a quote for the personalization, and he was like, "Oh, what should I do? I'm gonna give myself a mustache. Oh, what can I do? An evil one." So
evil Brandon from the mirror universe.
Raffles all the questions.
Listeners are gonna be so confused.
Oh yeah, they're super
that
confused.
happened.
It's like a Brandon fan? What? It's like, yeah, no, it is. Click on the YouTube video, you'll see. Also joining us is Jessie. Hi.
Hello, I'm Lady Lameness, and I would like it on the record that Eric still owes me brownies.
That's true. I do.
And said he will make them next week.
But by the time this episode's out, you will have brownies.
I am looking forward to it. I do very much like brownies. I also come bearing gifts of JordanCon swag, though I'm not sure if I can beat a Brandon fan. Mostly because I'm very small and not very strong, so I wouldn't want to try. But I have a couple of things. First off is this amazing badge with all of these stickers, and I am very, very pleased with it. And people kept saying like, "Wow, you've got so many stickers for a new person." I'm like, people just keep giving them to me. It's great.
Ribbons.
I love it.
It's ribbons and stickers.
Well, there's some stickers too.
Sorry.
Well,
there's
yes,
stickers too. Yeah,
most of them are ribbons.
The My Little Pony
I just want to
courtesy of me.
Yes, this is from Kaymyth, and I just want to highlight this one here because Otto made these and sent them to us, and I got rid of them in like 4 hours. Like they're all gone. Everyone really, really liked those stickers. Those actually are stickers.
It was amusing when people were like, "What's Vax?" And it's like, okay, so it's not about vaccines.
I had to start going up to people and be like, "Would you like a Cosmere vaccine sticker?" And I don't think people understood, but they're like, "Okay." And also, I sort of have this tradition of getting my badge, this thing, whatever this top thing is, badge signed, because I never know what to get signed at things. So I bullied all of Dragonsteel into signing it. So I've got like Isaac, Howard, Peter, Karen, Brandon, and like a fool, I put my username in the main name slot, whereas everyone else was like, "This is my name," and I'm like, "Well, okay then, I guess this is my name."
Is Evgeni frozen?
And then
I think I'm frozen in a magnificent pose.
Yeah.
that is pretty magnificent. That is true.
Yeah, you seem so interested in Justice Story. Yes. Welcome back from the Cosmere, Evgeni. Hello.
Yes, I had to get rid of Navani's desk. He was causing problems.
It was too volatile, you could potentially say.
Yeah.
It's true. Yes.
Let's just move
all
on.
the investiture caused time dilation and stop time.
right.
Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey.
Great. Fantastic. Starting strong. Please continue, Jess.
So I also grabbed some books while I was there. A lot fewer books than I was going to, because I went to the big bookstall on the first day. I was like, okay, these are the books that look cool. I'll come back later and I know where they are on the table. And I went back slightly too late and they were packing up the tables. I'm like, well, I guess I'm not getting any of those books then, which is probably good for the bank account because there was like 7 of them.
That's true. There were a lot.
But I did get this one called Founders by Stuart Jaffe, and the author was there and signed it and looked very nice. And this seems very interesting. It's about a sci-fi off-world colony people, I guess. So that's a book. And then the other one is the anthology, which the lovely Rosemary has a story in, and it is fantastic because I read it the other day. It's very, very fun.
You gotta read it. But we have it.
Highly recommend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, this art is just really pretty.
It's
Like I really like that art. The other things that I have are the bookmark that my camera's over here that Kaymyth gave me. Come on, focus. Oh, that didn't work. I just realized the characters are on the back. Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, I really like that. Then
art is courtesy of Little Grey Dragon on the Shard.
Oh, who's very nice. We met her.
nice,
sister.
very
She's
nice.
very nice.
Yeah, they had great cosplay. Just
Yes.
really good cosplay.
They did Navani and Raboniel, right?
Yeah, it was excellent.
It was excellent. Yep.
Should put that on screen.
And then I also have the JordanCon bookmark, which has this really cool art, which I think is also blurry, but
Yes.
there you go. But yeah, this is the other one. I thought I had more bookmarks, but now I can't find them. So yeah, anyway, that's everything I bought and or was given. Yeah, that's my
Great.
show and tell.
My
I'm
favorite.
done. Teach and move on.
Great. My favorite part in all of that was very interesting, but that Marvin is still over here. Has this. Hello, Marvin. How are you?
Well, hello.
He has been waiting to do that for minutes.
Oh man.
I've prepared this weeks ago for whenever I'm next in Shardcast.
Audio listeners.
You're
Audio
genuinely
listeners.
missing out.
You're gonna want
You
to
should
come
just
to
watch
YouTube.
the first 10 minutes of the YouTube
Yeah,
video.
yeah.
I'm not going to describe what just happened. You have to come watch the video.
Yeah.
Also, you get to see the show and tell. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and because I also have something for show and tell, I'll have to
Gonna
transition
come
to
into the physical realm.
physical realm again. Yeah, so yeah. I'm at JordanCon right now. Apparently, I'm being told that this is from the Hotel Garden.
That is true. It is.
There
Yes.
in Atlanta. So yeah, and for show and tell today, I brought this thing, which I guess spoilers for the Hoyt coin from the Way of Kings Kickstarter, that you can turn and you'll see the camera.
Oh, so you made
So,
a
yeah,
different box that turns?
Yeah, I based
Oh.
it off the Dragonwood shop one, but because I thought I had this idea when I first saw that one, I wanted to spin, and then I did this.
Cool. I mean, it's too pixely for anyone to actually get spoiled by it, so it works out. It works great.
you
I don't know.
can send us photos later.
Yeah.
Yep.
And last but certainly not least is the wonderful Rosemary. Hey,
Published author Rosemary.
published author.
Hi everyone, I'm Kaymyth, and Jessie kind of bogarted a bit of my show and tell, but because I've got my. But I'll show you. Let's see if this can actually show up.
Probably not.
Yeah,
Almost.
It says urban planning.
Almost.
you can kind of see.
Webcams are great. They're
Yeah,
great products.
not great.
They always
Not
work
perfect.
excellently.
But it's my name in a book because I
Yeah.
wrote a thing.
Wow.
Nice.
That's great.
Congratulations,
nice.
Rosemary.
I am excited.
And I am Chaos. I'm also sick, also from JordanCon. But I seem to be the only person who got sick from JordanCon, which is good. That is good. So if I seem low energy, that is why.
That's why I am cleansing myself on the inside.
Right.
It clears
That's what
the
we're calling it
sinuses.
now.
Yeah.
Clears everything.
What are you drinking today?
My go-to is just Wild Turkey 101 bourbon, which is a high rye, high proof bourbon, and I mixed that with a tonic water.
Cool. So this week and next week, I would assume, we're talking about JordanCon because we went to JordanCon. Me, Jess, Rosemary, and Evgeni, we were all at JordanCon along with a few others who couldn't make it. Like Joff was there, Grace was there. Got to meet Grace in person. That was fun. So what'd you guys think of the con? We'll just talk a little bit about that, and then we got a reading. We got WoBs. Got lots of WoBs. So many. But what'd you guys think of the con?
I mean, I always love JordanCon. I've been going since 2016, and I think I was the first staffer to start going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this con so much. It has so many wonderful people there, and they let me get away with the most ridiculous costuming. I might have broken Daniel Green's brain a little bit.
How so? Yeah,
on
we met
Saturday.
Daniel. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I didn't actually meet him, but I did make him look at me funny. So I'm in the art show doing my volunteer shift, and Daniel and one of the con staff come walking by, and Daniel stops and he starts giving me this odd look, and I'm like, why is Daniel Green looking at me funny? Did I make a rude face? I don't think I made a rude face. Would you even be able to tell if I did over through my mask? I don't know. And then finally they're like, this is all great. This is really working for me, but I gotta go. And then he's out there, and I'm like, is he talking about the art behind me? Oh, wait, I'm in costume. I was wearing my dystopian Muppet Hunter costume.
Oh,
and I'm
right.
like,
Yes.
yeah. And I don't know that he quite knew what I was wearing, but he thought it was interesting. And then I'm just like, well, I should have said thank you.
You basically had a Muppet skin of Elmo.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a Muppet skin Elmo on my back. I had a dead Yip Yip as a hip pack. I was wearing shoulder armor that had Grover fur on it, and I had a waist cincher on that was made from the fabric of Bert and Ernie's shirts.
You got him.
You had to be there.
It was a visual assault, is what it was.
Well, not as much as the assault on Muppets, but you know.
Yes.
That one was not visual.
No.
So basically, if Daniel Green is watching, I think this is you attempting to apologize.
I am sorry if I was rude. I did send a tweet reply to one of his things, but I have no idea if he read it. It's just like, hi, Daniel. I'm sorry if I came across as rude.
Yeah. Jess and I met him at like 2 a.m. Friday night. The Friday night. It's like, oh, hey, Daniel. How's it going? Then we talked about YouTubing.
Yeah,
he's cool.
Shocking.
Yeah,
he seemed very out of it.
Yes.
I mean, it was 2 a.m. I'm sure he was tired.
Yeah.
Also on the Friday night.
Yeah.
A lot of the Jordan conning happens at like 2 a.m. or 1 a.m. or 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. in some cases.
That is what
That's
I
when
have
shenanigans happen.
figured out.
Yeah. Saturday night we were up really late with Little Grey Dragon, and we were just answering her Cosmere questions. It was like a mini Shardcast. It was quite fun.
Yeah. It was interesting experience too. In retrospect, listeners, it was interesting being on a table with somebody who is knowledgeable about the Cosmere, but not all the way into the weeds, and then a bunch of people who are into the weeds.
Yes.
And then just essentially 3 or 4 of us just clamoring over each other to answer the questions. Mm-hmm. Like, I know this.
Yeah.
My weeds have flowers.
Jessie, you have any thoughts to add?
I had a lot of fun, and did not go to all that many official events, but had a blast hanging out with people, and 100% would go again.
Yeah, it's fun. The hot soup of the air was the worst, but
Oh, it was fine.
Only if you went outside.
yeah, but
Which
Yeah, don't do that.
yeah, Peter and Karen are super
Well,
nice.
That was your
Good
problem, is you
on
went
hotel.
outside.
Yeah,
working air conditioning. Why would you want to leave that?
I know.
Yeah.
That's certainly true.
But mostly.
Food mostly.
Perhaps worth
Yeah.
mentioning that essentially all of Dragonsteel was there this time
That's
around. We usually
Yes.
get Peter and Karen. Sometimes we get like Isaac and Kara, and oftentimes we would get like the more grunt employees
Mhm.
of Dragonsteel in the warehouse.
The
But
minions.
this time, pretty much the minions, yeah, of Silverlight Mercantile
Company.
Exchange Company.
They had a booth in the dealer's hall, so they were selling merchandise, and I think that might become a regular thing of theirs, but I'm not 100% sure.
We'll see.
The merch was
I
good.
don't know that they're 100% sure yet.
Yep. My
Merch
show
was
and tell was going to be the con. Well, I don't know if it's con exclusive or just limited time or limited supply shirt, but they had the Callan's Shosh brand on the
Oh
shirt,
yeah.
and then on like very faded behind it, which I only noticed when I got home actually, was the Bridge 4 glyph.
Oh, cool. I did
Oh.
not notice that.
Yeah, I
and-
didn't
Yeah, I
notice
did
that
not
at all.
either. And then I'm like, oh wait, because I was like brushing my teeth or whatever and in the shirt, and because I was much closer to the mirror, and I wait, there's a second glyph there. But that shirt's in the washer, so
Apparently, there's going to be a shiny version of the double eye of the Almighty eventually coming.
Looks
And
so good.
Isaac had a prototype of it, and they were selling like small versions that you could like put on your bookshelf. So I didn't get those.
Like the foil map of Roshar.
It wasn't
or-
quite like that, but it was sparkly.
Okay.
yeah.
And like
He said it was a similar idea, but
Yeah.
it wasn't exactly the same. He wanted to have more three-dimensionalness to it.
Yeah.
It had a little bit of a texture to it.
yeah.
So like embossing and whatever the opposite of embossing is.
I cannot wait
And
to
instead
buy
of
it.
the whole thing being foil, it was more just like the actual the radiant glyphs, and then they were highlighted more than the others because of that.
Mhm.
And they were like postcard sized things.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had like postcard size things, and then he had the big one. I'm like, I want a big one
Yeah,
now.
no, I would have instantly bought that. It's like, have my money. Let's go. That's what I
Oh,
want.
we bought art as
We did
well.
buy
I
it.
knew there was something else we spent money
Yeah,
on.
but we don't have it yet. Well, I guess
Oh,
we
yeah.
have the small ones, but
And
yeah.
I have the big poster tube that I need to mail to you.
yes, that's
and
true. It wouldn't fit in our
I'll
carry-on.
need an address for that, but definitely don't say that on Shardcast.
No, yeah.
So we live at,
Don't do it, Tony Stark.
and Eric's social security number is.
Yes. 555.
Not mine, because I don't have
555.
one. So
Hey.
Send your Patreon
That's-
donations to this credit card number.
But I got some great like little art prints of fairy scenes, and they just looked very cool and very quaint, and actually very similar to some of the art on like the JordanCon bookmark in a way. I don't think it's the same artist, just like the same style maybe, but they're very pretty.
Yeah, they are.
So bought that.
Cool.
And they might actually very well be the same artist, because that's not uncommon to find at JordanCon.
Mm.
You have there are certain artists who are there every year and are very well known to the con.
Awesome.
We should
a lot of fun.
transition away from our
Yes.
experiences at
Yeah.
the con, however.
Mm-hmm.
And so by way of doing that, I will say that Brandon had 2 signings, a couple of hours each there, and those seemed to have gone well. He answered a lot of questions, which
Yeah.
was surprising to me, but in a very good way, because I was a little sad that we wouldn't do Raf Olympics this time, which is
That's
Brandon's
true.
panel.
Yeah,
where
we
he answers
didn't do
questions.
that.
Yeah.
But the signing line apparently just had tons of stuff. We have like 100 WoBs, and some that we haven't
97 in
transcribed.
the JordanCon event.
Yes. It's the silver lining of not being able to be at JordanCon.
Yeah.
I got to listen to the signing lines first.
before any of the attendees, really.
Yes.
Because we were too busy conventioning.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mhm.
True.
And all of this culminated with impromptu surprise. So apparently Brandon was supposed to do a reading, and then things happened with the schedule, and there was no slot for him to do the reading. And so at like Saturday night, 10 p.m., after dinner, after all the panels had been done.
Brandon talked with Billy, and Billy's like, I will get it done.
Yeah.
Let's do a reading.
Billy
got done in like
Todd.
40 minutes. Yeah.
Billy Todd, who is the Sandertrack director, he's the person who organizes all the Sanderson stuff at JordanCon, just literally in 45 minutes whipped together a panel with audio, with like entry tickets, because limited seating because of COVID.
Yeah.
Like, he did an amazing job. And so we got a reading.
Yeah.
We have our first reading from
Of
the Lost Metal.
Yeah.
The fourth Wax and Wayne book.
Yes.
And it is the prologue.
So spoilers, I
which-
guess. But
Eh,
if you want to go totally blind.
There's still spoilers.
Yeah.
and so, much like the previous prologues, this one is essentially a flashback. It takes us back 20-ish years into the past, except this time we don't get to see Waxilium's childhood. We get to see Wayne's.
Yep. Oh, by the way,
When he's
link will
about
be in
10.
the description for it. It also came out in Brandon's newsletter because Lux is also out. But if you don't subscribe to the newsletter, we transcribed it from JordanCon, so you can check it out there. Links in the description. Yeah, what'd you guys think of this?
I really like, I was going to say Wax's, I really like Wayne's mum.
Yeah,
She
she's
just
great.
seems real sweet and like really understands her son and like isn't super harsh with him when she's like, you can't just be stealing stuff, Wayne. Like, you can't just be taking things. And just that was the one interaction where she finds the playing card. Like, I think she asks him who, and he just immediately gives the name and he has the thought, it's like, she will go around in the time that she does not really have to figure out who this, like, belongs to return it. And I'm like, oh, she sounds so nice.
Yeah.
That's what I took away from it, that Wayne had a really nice mom who died, which is very sad.
Yeah.
And it definitely explains the person Wayne is now.
Yeah.
And like the prologue was fun, but it's a very long Wayne scene, so I'm like,
Yeah, basically
iffy on it.
her mom is telling him an Alamancer Jack story, and Wayne is making it more gruesome than it actually was.
Which makes you wonder, how old is Alamancer Jack? Because he's still kicking around when Wayne's 30-something. And, I mean, he's been running around the roughs for a good 20 years.
I imagine most of the stuff we're reading is fictional.
Probably.
Alamancer Jack is a real person.
Yeah.
The real person. And I do think we've had Brandon say that the stuff about Kolos we get in those stories is more or less accurate. So there's it kind
it's
of makes
embellished.
There's a lot
More
of
than
embellishment, and I feel like what we get from Handerwim is a lot more accurate than the crap we get from Jack.
Yep.
Yeah.
I should probably read that story. I haven't done that.
It just left me cackling like a hyena when I read it.
It definitely, like whenever Wayne like interjected and made it more gruesome than it really was, and then Mom, how can you tell such gruesome story? That like it was really funny.
That was fun. That was fun.
And I think for Jack it
Wayne
does make
messing
sense.
with
Like,
people since a very young age.
Yep. Not surprising.
it does make sense. If Alamancer Jack was like in his early 20s or something when those came out, or when that story took place, I guess, and now he's, I don't know, late 40s maybe.
Yeah.
And
I think that
skulking around,
still
like,
works.
that works.
I think Allomancer Jack is an interesting parallel to Wax in that both of them,
That's true.
both of them were active in the roughs, kind of in their 20s, or so it seems to be the case with Jack, right? Both of them are obviously metal-born. Both of them are kind of these adventurous types, but they also hate each other. So that's great.
They do.
The other thing about the Wayne scene that stood out to me, the thing I cared least about in that scene was the story. Like everything else around it, I was like, this is much more interesting. Like I am very here for getting Wayne flashbacks. When it was described to me, I was like, oh, it's just Wayne's mom telling him a story. I was like, yeah, okay then. But yeah, everything around that, I'm like, I'm more interested in this. And the thing right at the beginning, and then it parallels at the end where he's waiting for her to come back, and he can't look out the window until he sees the reflection of the light coming in because of what's happened to his dad. And I think there was someone else. And it's just like, that is such a childhood thing that I can imagine someone living around a mine does if they're living under the constant fear of, will my parents come back? Like, until you have that confirmation in a way that they are coming home, like you can't even try and face the idea that they won't be. And like, I just, that really stuck with me. And then of course at the end there's a parallel, and then the mine collapses and she doesn't come home. It's like, oh yeah, okay, that did kind of hit me where it hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Brandon's good at that.
Yeah.
he is.
And I have always wanted to know like what happened with Wayne when he was younger. Like there's a couple of, particularly in Alloy, there's a couple of references to it, particularly talking about how he meets up with Wax. I'm like, but what happened before that? How did Wayne get to this point? I still kind of want to know how he gets from the point of little boy living near a mine to attempting robbery. Like what happens in the interim there? But it's like that little bit more of, okay, his parents are now all dead and he's a young teenager. What would you do after that? And I can see the progression.
Yeah, we get a little bit of that in the story, right? We get a little bit of him skirting the boundaries of the law, right? He's stealing things. He's thinking about doing cards, like cheating in games of cards. And so to me, that's one of the purposes of this prologue. It shows you that from a very young age, there were influences in Wayne's life. I think the older kids in the town, essentially, who were encouraging him.
It was the younger. The kid was 9.
Oh, yeah. Right. Although I'm sure older kids would have the same impact.
Yeah.
And so there were these influences, and then on the other side were his parents, or at least his mother, which was a much more balancing and moral, hey, no, we don't do that, Wayne. And then so when he lost her, it makes a lot of sense it makes a lot of sense to me for him to like fall to these other temptations. And also he was an orphan in a mining town. He had to figure out a way to survive until his late teens when Wax found him after he had committed a murder. So,
And if anything, it's almost surprising that it took him that long to get to the point where Wax found him. I mean, in some ways, because what happened? Was there any other family that he had that like took him in after his mom died, or was he just like on his own?
I don't think we know.
From that point on.
Yeah.
But thumbs up for Wayne's mom. Great woman.
Yeah.
I hope we get a name for her.
Hopefully.
Another
Really hope.
unnamed mom. Let's go. I mean, it makes sense if he's a boy. He's not gonna think of his mom's name, right? Like that makes sense in viewpoint, but it is just funny.
Ma, whose name was blah blah blah.
Yep.
No, her name's just Ma.
Yeah.
That's actually just her name as well.
Short
Maybe
for Malishi.
Malishi, no. I like it.
Like maybe he'll pass through like the old mining town on his way somewhere, and maybe somebody will, oh, aren't you boy or whatever.
Yeah,
But
that can happen.
Like, it's got to tie back in somehow, I think. All the other prologues have tied back in some way.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot. I want to talk about this.
Okay.
During JordanCon, on multiple occasions, Peter Ahlstrom, Karen Ahlstrom, and Brandon Sanderson said that the Lost Metal would be very interesting to people who were interested in the deep secrets and connections in the Cosmere.
They did all say that.
They were all very excited to tell us that multiple times.
Yeah.
Like, to the point where one point when Brandon said what he was going to do, people were like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" So that is how big a leap we're looking at here.
I'm really excited. I'm very excited.
Mad with glee.
Yes.
Yeah. So
it's gonna be great.
I don't know if our friend Vendel with the changing coats, who's not an Awakener, Vendel, is going to show up and be like, so, Aethers, Shards, Splinters, Slivers, Connection, Identity, Fortune.
Just a page full of terms.
Just terms. Yeah. Just a printout from the wiki.
We'll get to something in the general Q&A that he did of something that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And Del's just plugging all these terms like you do in a YouTube algorithm to get people to find your video.
Yeah, that's right. Let's put some pop stars in there too. Then people will be very confused by this video.
And so speaking of the general Q&A, let's go and talk about some WoBs.
The first question is from a very cool person that we all know. The Gator Girl 00.
Whoa, that's Grace.
Grace.
Yeah.
Do spren feel any kind of sexual or romantic attraction? Brandon. Not as a rule. There are some orders that are more likely to do so. There are a lot of orders that you would call asexual. But it depends on the individual, and it depends on their breed or race of spren. So it varies.
That's cool.
So Silladin is not dead.
That's true.
No.
That's right.
No.
No, I would say that is very much alive.
And I do like how he says it, like, it does depend on the individual.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
So, like, even if, like, certain varieties are more likely to be asexual, they are not just uniform.
They're not a monolith.
Yeah.
Which is nice. I do like that one.
Yep.
And I know Grace has been very excited to ask this question for a very long time.
She has. She has.
Cool. So our next question comes from Page Runner, who is kind of the main force behind Arcanum actually working. So if you guys use Arcanum, go give him a shout out.
Go say hi to
he does a lot of recording, a lot of transcribing, a lot of work on that side.
That is his focus.
One of the things he did at the con was he had his Cosmere constellations chart, and he also had all of the individual star charts for all of the worlds. And I don't think we have this in this document because it's mostly silly, but he had all of the star charts. He gave them to Isaac and was like, hey, write down a complaint Naz would have with each one of these words. Okay, so apparently those are in there. But the other thing he did was he did a similar thing with the constellation chart. And I don't know whether it was like a personalization thing, but the end result is Brandon ended up writing, like circling a point on the map and writing, here there be aethers, to which Paige asked if there was a name for this planet that he was adding where aethers are. And Brandon said, no, he's not. He can't canonize that until he actually writes that story.
Cool.
And that's the end of that WoB.
Nice.
What this implies to me is that Vax, which has been canonized as a name, is less likely to be the world of the aethers.
Yeah,
but it could still Vex could still be like the main planet that story takes place on, because we have had Brandon say before, I think, that he at least plans to have aethers on multiple worlds now, or something to that effect. So this could be just one of them, I guess. But it's not really clear, I guess, whether I don't think it says anything about Ovex in particular.
I
but
see what you're
interesting,
saying, but I think I'm more with Ian on this one.
Mhm.
I think in my mind, what's going on in Brandon's mind is that there is something weird or special or interesting going on with Vax, and especially with the initiation on Vax. And so, this is something he knows.
Yeah.
And what this WoB is telling me is that he is now he has either figured out or is figuring out what he's going to do with aethers, and that is to me that it's obviously a separate thing from whatever he's had regarding Vax for the past 5 years or whatever.
True. Yeah, sure.
Makes sense. Yeah. And something interesting note about this WoB, I think, is that Brandon had Isaac, I think, take a photo of the constellation, because he canonized this location on the spot. So technically, even Isaac didn't know that a planet would be there.
Note that down for future reference.
Or Brandon just picked a random spot and said, "Okay, I guess this is where he's going to
pretty much."
Yeah, cool. Oh boy, this next one is
that's
probably this one's the title of the YouTube video right here.
I mean,
it's the title of the video.
Yep.
Questioner: Taln, did he actually ever give up, or did he just get released when ... Brandon, you will find out, but Taln did not break. You'll find out how it happened, but Taln did not break.
Whoa, can't believe he said this.
So crazy.
I don't even know where to go with this, because the amount of speculation and discussion that's happened around okay, so this is how the desolation started, and this is how it must have worked, and Brandon's just toss. Have fun.
LOL, JK.
I know this has been very commonly theorized, and I'm I don't know. I never liked that theory personally. But yeah, I guess it's the thing.
So listeners and viewers, let me introduce you to a theory I do not espouse.
Oh, the Chana one?
A theory that has the Chana one, yeah.
Yeah.
A theory that has certain very loyal followers in our community. And that is that, I promise this is going to be relevant, so bear with me.
Yeah.
The theory says Chana is Shallan's mom. Okay?
Yeah.
And the reason this is relevant is that, as I understand it, now mind you, I'm not into these weeds, I'm in different weeds. As I understand it, the theory goes, well, let's assume that Chana is Shallan's mom.
Yes.
Then what happens is Shallan kills her mom, who's a herald, who is still loosely bound to the Oath Pact. And so when Chana dies, she goes back to Braze, and all of this happens before the events of the Way of Kings, 10 years before or whatever. She goes back to Braze, where the whole fused heralds, hide and seek, torture game commences again. Taln is minding his own business. He's not breaking. I'm fine. You do your thing, Chana. And Chana, of course, breaks. That is what starts the cycle of desolations again. And so she gets kicked out. So Chana is somewhere on Roshar, presumably. Taln gets kicked out. We see him at the end of the Way of Kings. And this WoB is obviously... I wouldn't say it supports this theory, but it doesn't contradict that. It's
circumstantial evidence.
Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, there's another theory that the Everstorm was cooked up as a way to get around the Oath Pact.
Yeah. I think
that's what it definitely came across to me, because it's been brewing and Odium's been working on it for so long. And if it's still required at Herald to break, like that just seems like a weird thing to bank on at this point on Odium's side, instead of just being like, well, I'm gonna find a workaround. So like that's in a way, this does make it a little less confusing to me if the Everstorm was meant to be something separate, because it always felt a little bit weird that just happened to all happen at the same time that Taln shows up. Like, there's a bit too coincidental almost.
Yeah. It also reinforces the whole idea of this desolation being different from all that came before. It was triggered by something else.
One thing I will bring up that I think is worth discussing is that as far as we know, there was nothing special about the Everstorm until the Everstorm was pulled into the physical realm, right? And we see Taln in the physical realm at the gates of Kholinar at the end of the Way of Kings.
Right.
At that point, there is no Everstorm. There's a splinter of the barrier storm that is still being dragged towards Roshar.
Sure, yeah.
But like
at that point, I think it was actually already in the Rosharan planet Shadesmar system, because Ulam talks about how they had trouble getting people out there to get the void spren across because they had to go out into the middle of the ocean.
Right.
So I do think it was already there.
So do you think that was like the inciting incident, essentially, right? Because something had to have released Taln in the physical realm. And that happens like, what's the timeline between the Way of Kings and Words of Radiance? Several months, a year?
6 months, I think.
Let's say several months.
Yeah.
What was the question? Sorry, the time frame.
The time difference between the end of the Way of Kings and the end of Words of Radiance.
2 months.
Oh, because we have
it's very short.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. And so something happens. Taln shows up in the physical realm, and I think he shows up pretty much directly at Kholinar.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then 2 months later, the listeners summon the Everstorm across the boundary of the realms.
Yeah.
What is the thing that enables Taln to show up if it's not his breaking? Is the question I want to get at.
Chana.
I wonder.
It would be entertaining to me if Odium went to all that trouble to create this workaround, and then a herald died, went to Braze, and broke quickly. And he's like, well,
funny.
that was a whole lot of pointless.
So I would not be surprised if it somehow had something to do with Gavilar. Like, I don't know how, but like, because we know he did experiment with stuff on Braze and did send people over there. So I'm not saying it directly was something he did, but I wouldn't be surprised if it had an effect on Braze and the Oath Pact and like how all of that works, because they did mess around in Braze or on Braze.
I wonder if this was meant to be a workaround, and I don't know what it would be, but something clicked in, okay, this is how we now get the Void Spren infused and that out of Braze through the Everstorm. That was enough to invalidate the original purpose of the Oath Pact. So Taln could leave because his, like, what he was trying, like, the purpose of why he was there no longer existed. And the Oath Pact was now meaningless in a way, because it didn't matter if he broke or not. So therefore, the whole thing just kind of went kaput, and he wasn't chained there anymore.
I have an idea similar to that, where the heralds always returned first and like had some amount of time to prepare people before Fused started showing up. What if, like, because Odium like did find that workaround, and so like Fused were going to start showing up, like that part of the Oath Pact that says like the heralds can go there first, to prepare them for X amount of time, like engaged. So it's like he was pushed to Roshar because it was going to be.
Yeah. That's
like
that's
using a different
option.
key that fits the same lock.
Yeah, but it's like that part of the
Wibbly-wobbly,
contract needed to be
timey-wimey.
Yeah,
I see. So what I'm getting at from both of you is essentially this is kind of the same mechanism that has happened before, except this time we are triggering that mechanism because the Everstorm, it's not the heralds initiating the return, it's the fused essentially initiating the return, and that automatically allows the heralds to return. I think I can get behind that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Which I do think begs some very interesting questions about the theories of recreating the Oath Pact and whether that actually could ever work again if they have found this alternative means that will trigger the desolation anyway. Or whether if they redid the Oath Pact, they'd have to kind of redo the entire thing to encompass this new loophole that that Odium's forces found.
Making new heralds would be enough. Like you'd have to change it to include and the Everstorm doesn't count or whatever. So
Yeah.
and the question is like, could this have happened at any point in the past? Like when the heralds were still like actively maintaining the Oath Pact, could Odium and his forces have found this loophole? Or it's because the Oath Pact has been disintegrating that like now's our chance, like we can't hack it.
Yeah. Good question.
And I guess an interesting follow-up question to this one now is was Taln ever close to breaking, or could he have gone on forever? Like just see just how badass Taln is.
Interesting things to think about.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's go to the next question, which is Runner again. And he asked, were all spren wounded by Ba-Ado-Mishram, Ba-Ado-Mishram's capture like the sibling was? Did it prevent them from hearing Honor's tone in the same way? To which Bren said that whether like he wanted a clarification, and he said that not all were wounded in the same way that the sibling was, and no, they do not necessarily are not necessarily prevented from hearing the Honor's tone.
I don't remember who was talking about this, but I remember recently, like the last day or so, someone was talking about the idea that Ba-Ado-Mishram is like the spren of Roshar herself.
Yeah.
And part of the it might have been you, Argent. Like part of the reason that Josh, yeah. Part of the reason that the sibling was affected so much is because they are so integrally interlinked with the planet as a whole and everything on it. Whereas other things are like further away from the source in a sense, like they are more on the periphery. So I can see how that would work if other spren aren't necessarily as affected as the sibling was.
Yeah.
I don't like Joff's idea that because the impression I always got was that what Ba-Ado-Mishram was doing was new. Like she did something during the false distillation to be able to do to connect all the singers. It's like she wasn't that important beforehand.
I agree. I don't think she did it before. The Radiants were surprised.
It may simply have been something that affected the Bondsmith spren more than anyone else because of how linked into connection they are. Yeah. And because the Stormfather is Stormfathering all over the place and has a big chunk of honor attached to him. And because the Night Watcher has cultivation working with her, they had better anchors to stay more focused. But the poor sibling, they were just kind of sitting there all alone hiding. And so it affected them more strongly.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about this. I don't.
I think the second part of the question about Honor's tone, wasn't that as a consequence of Honor's death, like splintering, and not the capture of Ba-Ado-Mishram? I don't think on this anymore.
I think the way the timeline works is the sibling says or heavily implies that it was the imprisonment of Ba-Ado-Mishram that resulted in the loss of Honor Stone.
Yeah.
Not the Splinter of Honor.
Okay.
Yes. That is my impression. I could look at our Ba-Ado-Mishram podcast document, but my understanding is that is the case.
Okay.
Which one of those things happened first?
I think Ba-Ado-Mishram's capture, because the recreants happened prior to Honor's death. So Ba-Ado-Mishram's capture would have to be prior to Honor's death.
Yeah. I mean, like, one way you can justify that is to say, well, Honor's splintering, it's been lasting a long time, and so there was a critical point that happened around the time of the imprisonment of Ba-Ado-Mishram, and so the sibling lost the tone because of that critical point, but it happened at the same time, and so the sibling assumed incorrectly. It's possible, but it's too convoluted, I think. It's too contrived.
By the way, the quote there, it is, the sibling saying, I have been wounded thousands of years ago. Something happened that changed the singers. It hurt me too. And Navani says, you're speaking of the binding of that unmade, which made singers lose their forms. Yes, that terrible act touched the souls of all who belonged to Roshar. Spren too. How have no Spren mentioned this? I don't know, but I lost the rhythm of my light that day. The tower stopped working. My father, Honor, should have been able to help me, but he was losing his mind, and he soon died. So that makes it very explicit. Yeah. No doubt at all. No room for doubt. Honor was still alive, but he was crazy, so couldn't help. So there you go.
Okay, so questioner. When a shard changes hands, does the god metal change names and or properties? And Brandon says it can. It doesn't as a rule. And the questioner, so it'll still be lerasium? And Brandon says, yes. Well, the name, you would change the name probably, but it shouldn't necessarily do anything different. The name that it's given is cultural, so you can continue to call it that. People might call it that. I think people in world would call it something else, but it depends on the person.
So in retrospect, this explains a whole lot of WoBs on the part of Brandon.
Oh,
where it's like, oh, Ati is dead. There's no more atium.
True, right. Yeah.
And it's like, this was like one of the first things I snipped, and it immediately filled me with rage. Because it's stupid. Do not change the names of things, Brandon. It is bad and confusing.
I can now see why he went with harmonium, and I remember the first time I heard about that, I was like, but Caesarium would have been so cool. But now I'm like, Brandon, why didn't you just go with the shard name for all of them? Why are you doing this to us?
Odium.
Odiums.
Yeah. Or just like leave it as the name of the first vessel out of respect.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to change.
But I see what he means here then, in that the people involved would make that decision, and he's trying to be true to what the cultures and the individuals would do, rather than just trying to wield his author club, like, I wrote this, so this is the name, and everyone continues to call it that. And what he's doing makes more sense on the level of, this is what people would probably do. But it's just confusing to us.
But
yeah, in a series this big, the in-world, this is what people would do versus the don't confuse your audience. Like, these series are too big, Brandon. You're going to confuse your audience. You confuse them anyway with how many terms you have.
And once a name sticks, people tend to not change it very much. Once convention gets stuck. How? I mean, it is a big event, a vessel change, right? It is. But still.
I hear you. But also, we've known Rasium as a canonical name for only a book. And so there is an opportunity there to, in book 5, and then for the entirety of back 5, for Teravangian to say, Yeah, so I know my dear friends Fused that we used to call this lerasium, but this company is now under new management. And so we're going with Teravangium, for example.
Yep.
And the fact that we have so many more books to get adjusted to that, maybe it's not ideal, but I think it's workable with.
I feel like the problem is the precedent he's set up with all of the other shard metal names. So yeah, we've only had this one for one book, but we've had the other ones for a lot longer. And then if they all go off the same same naming structure, then I don't think that matters that we haven't had this one for very long.
But I mean that I don't. It also depends on whether we are going to get more vessel changes in the future. Like, how common a thing will this be? And I think that as far as lerasium is concerned, it could just be that it should still be consistent, I feel, in the books, but at least inward, I could see that the humans will start calling it something else because they never knew it as lerasium. And as far as I could find, we only have singers or Reboniel refer to it as lerasium right now, so that could be a thing inward. But consistency would still be nice, yeah.
And yeah, what I was going to say is kind of similar and builds off that. We haven't really established the name very hard in the books. Changing it isn't as big a deal. And most of the other shards, we don't know what their metal does or what properties it has. We haven't seen it other than the probability of Autonomy's metal, but that also could have been an alloy.
Sure.
So it's not as big a deal when you haven't established a name and then go and change it. But and there's still also some precedent because of Ralkalast and aluminum being the same thing. Ralkalast is basically the Yolish word for aluminum. And most people calling it that, it's a translation. Whereas on Scadrial, because it's the closest Earth analog that we have, it's actually called aluminum. So it's not completely without precedent. And the whole atium, lerasium, harmonium thing, well, harmonium really is a new metal because it's both things combined. And there's no reason why Sazed can't create atium separately and may very well have, just to keep himself balanced, just like, boom, here's a chunk of atium, I'm going to set it over here and ignore it and put it where nobody can find it, and that way I am in proper balance and I don't become more ruin than preservation. But he doesn't want to give it to anyone. That may be Marsh, but Marsh already had plenty.
Yeah, already had plenty. I think because the Fused are really, they're saying lerasium. The Fused would presumably, learn about Teravangian eventually. And so if they change the name to Teravangium, then that's probably what they're going to call it. And they've been around for thousands of years. And so if they want to change it, then they can.
Really, my biggest problem is there's so little difference in the sound of Teravangian and Teravangium.
Yeah, that's true.
No.
And it's even worse with Odium, right? Because that's already has the IUM.
Yeah.
One thing that I thought was that maybe they can come up with an in-world word. So let's say we take the Vaden word for Odium, right? Like the in-world Vaden word for Odium. And that, for some reason, just sounds cooler, right? And so we end up with something that doesn't sound like Teravangian, it doesn't sound like Odium, it doesn't sound like Raise.
And it isn't the name of a musical instrument.
It's sort of like eth metal.
We give it the eth metal, the Raukalist treatment. So
I can't wait until Lost Metal comes out and Brandon doesn't canonize Trillium, and then we have to go change all those wiki pages.
Cool. So Patrunner asks, the kandra on Roshar, is that Felt's wife, Molly? Brandon, Rapho, that is an excellent question. That should indeed be, yeah. Don't know where he's going on with that sentence, but
He'd be, yeah.
mhm.
Yeah. I mean, I assume he was going to. Yeah, that's a question you should be thinking about. That's a
Sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
If I recall correctly, Page Runner's logic for this was, well, we should not be just like throwing darts at a dartboard when it comes to the Kandra World Hopper. Let's find a Scadrian, right?
Mhm.
And obviously, we don't know of any confirmed Scadrians, but felt comes from Scadrial, and so it could make sense that his wife is also from there, and therefore, let's see if she's the Kandra.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's about it there.
Next question. Is there a Cosmere significant reason why, on Scadrial, the investiture is hereditary, but that doesn't really seem to be the case on any of the other worlds? Brandon. Yes, there is, but it has more to do with the fact that on Scadrial, human beings were directly created by ruin and preservation. And most of the Cosmere worlds you've seen don't have that same sort of aspect. It is the case on Nalthis, but it's not the case on Voshar. It's not the case on Taln. It's not the case on Cell. And so because of that instance, that's how I'm kind of working. That changed the way people interact with magic directly, but there is some wiggle room there for me. But that's your answer. I'm not hiding anything there. What I'm saying is don't extrapolate that has to happen every time that the shards were directly involved in the creation.
Probably that's interesting. Probably the most interesting part is that Nalthis was
Breaths. Everyone's born with a breath.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
that makes a lot of sense.
and we have a WoB that like if you go to Nalthis as a Scadrian and you have children there, they will already get breath because it's sort of also like a connection thing or something, or like their children will get breath, but eventually you will get breath if you are on Nalthis long enough. But I think the more interesting question would be like if you're a Nalthian and go off world, or if you have a breath and go off world, or will your children still get breath? And that would, I feel like, be what would have to be hereditary.
Mm-hmm.
So
it sounds like there's a partial hereditary, partial location basis to the magic.
I guess I'm reading this a little different because he's like, it has more to do with the fact that in Scadrial, human beings were directly created by runes and preservation. Most of the Cosmere worlds you've seen don't have that sort of aspect. It is the case on Nalthis, though. So is he saying that humans are created on Nalthis? Like that's new.
That was why I emphasized that part.
Yeah.
Because that was not implied in the essays at all.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we didn't have an Nalthis essay, so I guess.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that.
Right. We don't have an Nalthis essay, so I mean.
Oh, that's a very good point. Because in the Scadrian essay, it's like one of two known places where the humans were made by the shards directly.
Oh, really?
And now suddenly we know, Nalthis might be the other one.
Nalthis might be the other one.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Where's our Nalthis essay, Brandon?
In the Arcanum.
Grabby hands.
Yeah.
In 2026. The Arcanum Leatherbound. It is interesting. Because, like, I always liked the idea that endowment didn't always go to Nalthis. That it was, like, a few centuries before, and, like, because Awakening's new, right? So I always liked that theory, so that's interesting.
I will quickly bring up a WoB from 2017, from the Oathbringer release party, where somebody was asking what would happen if Scadrial were to colonize, let's say, Nalthis. How would the investitures work out in that context? And so the short version of it is that for a period of time, for a number of generations, and Brandon wouldn't say how many, the children of these invaders essentially would continue getting Scadrian connection, Scadrian magic, and they would get breath. It is a little unclear whether like the immediate descendants of the invaders would get breath, or whether it will take a few generations, but it will happen.
I hope we see something like that in Era 4. That'd be sweet.
That'd be cool.
One with multiple investitures just because they've moved. Their parents or grandparents moved.
I think the way that Brandon words this in this swap here, that like it has that or implies that Nathis has the same sort of aspect to it. I could also like it doesn't necessarily mean that Endowment created them. It could just be that because she has been directly investing into people for generations now, it has started to become sort of like the more inherent to their like gene pool or whatever.
Yeah, but modern cultivation have been on Roshar for thousands of years, and he's specifically saying it's not there on Roshar.
Yeah. Yeah, but not everyone on Roshar is getting investiture. Like directly invested.
I guess.
But there's a very high ambient investiture on
that
Roshar.
is true, yeah. That is
like
true, yeah.
tons.
And remember that investiture on Roshar is controlled with the oaths.
Mm-hmm.
So that is kind of a function of how the magic works there. So no, it's not going to be directly hereditary because it's linked so strongly to the spren.
Yeah.
Honestly, my read of the swab is Brandon going, I can do whatever I want.
Well, I mean, that is the end of the day here. That it is, he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, he's saying, I can have a world where the shards create everything and magic is hereditary, but that doesn't have to be the case. I can have a world where the shards don't create everything and magic can be hereditary,
that is
or
true.
vice versa.
True. Yeah. Agreed.
Well, yes, I think the more gist of it was that if a shard creates a planet and the people, it's not guaranteed to be genetic, which is like the reverse.
Yeah.
But I do think the genetic is very tied to being created by the shards. I think it's less likely for that to happen elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. And maybe if a shard's creating things, then they could design it in a way that it isn't hereditary, perhaps. But like maybe that would be the default, that it would be hereditary.
Now comes my turn. And normally I would paraphrase a WoB this long, but I think it is important to both be aware of the imprecisions in my question and the exact wording of Brandon's answer.
Yeah.
Because both can influence the way you think about this.
Yeah.
So, I say, with Intent Command, I've been thinking about how things would apply to other magic systems. On Nathis, they seem kind of folded together into the same thing, but I can't crack the metals on Scadrial and the Aeons on Elantris. Because the Aeons seem very command-y, not very intent-y, right? So, what about the metals? And before I give you the Brandon answer, for context, at the time, I was thinking that this is obviously with Dawn Shard and Nickli's thing about intent and command in context.
Right.
And I was thinking that every instance of magic would have a piece of intent and a piece of command that we can find. And I was thinking, well, Aeons, the actual Aeon would be the command, and the intent would be your intent to draw that Aeon instead of just waving your finger in the air.
Right.
And so I was trying to figure out how metals work in that framework. And so Brandon says, the Aeons, you should be able to figure it eventually out. With the metals, when I wrap this up, it's going to be a very slight, and you shouldn't assume that every one of the permutations of the Cosmere magics are going to require the same levels of... I need the freedom on each one. So intent and command can't be a major feature of every magic. Otherwise, it's too restrictive. You are going to end up with too many that feel the same. You can imagine on Scadrial that different metals would not have had to do what they do in the origin of the magic system. This is not necessarily innate. That is relating to the creation of the magic. I say how it was built manually, almost, by a shard, or I think by the shards is what I said. And Brandon continues, does that make sense? You can imagine an in-Cosmere magic system that is very similar to Allomancy, where each of the metals do a different thing than they do in Allomancy. One footnote that we added to this, because of my memory. During the entire time I was speaking so before Brandon spoke, so the first paragraph essentially that is mine, Brandon was nodding. And I don't know whether he was nodding in agreement to the things I was saying, or whether he was nodding in, okay, I hear you, I understand the words you're saying, you can continue speaking.
So, I mean, that makes sense that, like, Brandon doesn't want to be too restricted, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The Scadrial part's a little weird to me.
It's weird because we have that warp about the spiritual integrity of the metals and how apparently the effects they have on Rosha are sort of similar or very similar to Allomancy because of that. And so it's weird to me that we could have a system that worked similarly to Allomancy, but the metals just were swapped or whatever. That is a little incongruent, I feel.
Yeah.
Like, I think you'd have to design it to explicitly be not like Allomancy, given what we know. Like,
which is okay with what Brandon is saying, right? He's saying, you can imagine on Scadrial, the different metals would not have had to do what they do in the origin of the magic system. So the way you can read that is Ruin and Preservation had some control over, or Shards have some control over how metals express themselves in their own magic. And so maybe Ruin and Preservation defaulted to whatever the spiritual integrity of the metal was, and maybe Honor, Cultivation, and or Odium defaulted to the spiritual integrity of metals. Or maybe both of these groupings of shards imparted the same... Maybe both of them like overwrote specific metals. Maybe that's what's going on here. Maybe what Brandon is essentially saying is, well, iron and steel and zinc and brass, these pulling and pushing and enhancing and suppressing properties of these metals that we see in both magic systems are inherent to the metals. And the shards didn't bother doing anything with them because they were happy with these effects. But, and this is, I'm continuing this hypothetical, maybe on Scadrial, Ruin and Preservation said, well, let's say we are going to make Duralumin have this enhancing effect on metals. But on Roshar, Honor and Cultivation said, let's make Duralumin do this thing that has nothing to do with enhancement. Like maybe the enhancement was the spiritual, like the innate property of Duralumin, but Honor and Cultivation overwrote that. Like they have the freedom to do that should they want to. And maybe this is Brandon's way of saying, I need the freedom to say, in this world, this metal does this thing, and this other world, this metal does a very different thing. And maybe both of them were overwritten, maybe only one of them was, maybe neither of them was.
We've already seen some of that with how metals affect fabrials. Some of them are very similar, and some of them are just completely off the wall different.
They all like seem thematically linked in my head. There aren't any,
at least
like,
to Allomancy. Not really to ferrochemy, at least.
Yeah. Well, there's some wild difference between Allomancy and ferrochemy on some metals and totally similar on others too. So you've got a range of things to play with, even as it's already laid out for us.
Like, silver might have some effect in fabrials, but not be one of the keys to doing something in Allomancy. Like maybe preservation was like, I want these metals to do things.
I just feel like the Brandon's wiggle room has more to do with varying levels of intent and command and less with the metals.
Yeah.
It's like it makes sense that you need less intent and command in a magic system where the abilities are very rigidly described. It's like they're more for like Awakening, it's very broad in what you can do. So it's like intent and command are more important. In Allomancy, it's very rigidly described. So it's like your intent is like you need to intend to do the magic.
I need to burn this. It does.
Yeah, but it's like you don't have as much influence over what effect. It's like command. It's like, okay, I'm going to soothe this specific emotion.
Sure.
But it's
very minimal.
It's not as important.
You could maybe sort of see it like the metal also just like if you want to bring the metals into it somehow to like describe in the framework of elemency, like the metals sort of provide a template for the command and you can just like pick, okay, I want to do this with the like you don't have as much freedom in the command, sort of. But in the intent would be the burning, I guess. Yeah.
That's how I was thinking of this. Like walking into this question, right? I was imagining the metals as essentially coming with their own command, and your intent is your intent to burn the metal. Very similar to how I was thinking about aeons, right? Aeon are their own command, or they come with their own command, and the intent is just the will to make that aeon real.
So the next question is by Ted Herman, who asks, so besides Cianart, cultivation, and L, does anyone know about the new Odium? Brandon, I think that most of the shards will be quickly finding out if that makes sense. This is a thing that they would know pretty quickly. So it sounds like spiritual realm mumbo jumbo to me. Like
there's a disturbance
can kind of like feel the vibes change.
It does remind me of The Traveler, where Hoyt is like talking to Frost and is like, "You've been watching." So apparently these things are visible from a distance.
And I could sort of almost see it like being when Yesrian was killed by Moash, like all the heralds felt it in some form, and like if they already feel it, a shard is definitely going to know, okay, something happened there. I think.
Yeah, it could be a connection thing, right? So the other heralds felt Jezreel's death because they are all connected to the Oath Pact. They're all connected to each other. Maybe all of the shards are just connected to each other because they where they come from.
All
right?
and Elsium, yeah, right.
Yeah. It doesn't seem all the way that, because like Harmony was looking for some shards and couldn't find all of them. So like most notably, autonomy was hidden to him. So it's not foolproof, but maybe if it's more, but maybe autonomy is just hiding, right?
But he knew there was something there to find.
Yeah. Maybe if like, let's say autonomy died. I don't want to get in the weeds as to what that means. But let's hypothetically say that, then like maybe that would also create some sort of disturbance in the spiritual that could be felt, whereas like autonomy is alive could be like, you know, dampening whatever is detectable or something, right?
Yeah.
It does make me very excited for the letters. Or like
book
epic
5
graphs in
letters.
SA5.
I still want them to be Odium letters. Tervanian.
Yep.
Yeah. I like
Mailing
that idea a lot.
the other shards. That'd be sweet.
Hi guys,
Hey.
I'm new in town.
Hello.
Help me out, please.
I'm very different from that idiot race. I heard you don't like him very much.
Oh, that's
Okay. Moving on to another Patreon question.
yeah. He
Yes.
he pulled an Argent on this con.
In the Traveler, Hoyt was on Yolen. He has only world topped with perpendicularities. Does Yolen have a perpendicularity? To which Bren answered that Yolen has something very similar. Follow-up question from Paige. Okay, is it associated with a shard? To which Bren answered, you could call it a perpendicularity, but there is not a shard in residence on Yolen.
Interesting.
Makes you kind of think that that Adenelsium as a whole left enough of an impression behind just to leave that link there. So it's like some sort of shadow of Adenelsium as a whole. There's just too much investiture there, even after it's been splintered into 16. You're always going to be able to access Yolen if you know how to get there, which apparently not many people do.
Sure, because it's hidden.
It reminds me of the discussion we were having before about like what things are called in world versus out of world, and this question comes across to me as when Brandon say you would call it a perpendicularity. I think he's mostly meaning out of world for sake of ease of talking about it. The fandom would call it a perpendicularity, but in world, it is not the mechanics of a perpendicularity. Or it is, but sorry, that was badly phrased. It is, it's just not the same.
It is not the same, yeah.
I think Chris would call it a perpendicularity probably as well. Like if
it's a weird
Cosmere scholar. Yeah, exactly.
A semantic difference, probably.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is one of those. I feel like we have a word of Brandon that says that essentially any mass, sufficiently large mass of investiture would puncture the realms.
Yeah,
doesn't have to be from the same shard. So maybe what we are looking at is just like a bunch of multi-shard investiture acting like a perpendicularity. But we wouldn't call it that because the only perpendicularities we've seen have been monoshardic perpendicularities.
Right. I find this most interesting that the extra shards that we have not seen on screen, they're not on Yolen. They're other places, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah, it makes sense that nobody wanted to set up shop in Odium's in Aethers' backyard.
Yeah, well, that's kind of interesting though.
Where his body is,
presumably.
Yeah.
So next up, questioner asked, "Is Kelsier confirmed as the leader of the Ghostbloods?" And Brandon says he is. There wasn't any question before, but now there's really no question.
Yeah.
That he is. I can tell you that. They will make an appearance in the next Wax and Wayne book now that the full secret is out. Glee!
I think that means Ghostbloods.
Yeah. Ghostbloods.
Okay.
Because he said
I was thinking
they, not he.
Yeah.
That's
pretty cool.
Surprising is what it is.
Yeah.
I did not expect him to whip out the Ghostbloods in Era 2.
Well, I don't know if they're gonna be like, I don't know if we're gonna see, there's the Ghostblood symbol on them. Like, it could be just more like, well, we're getting more sovereign stuff. And so, I mean, that's a fairly natural progression after bans, I think, that we see some more sovereign influence. And, that's in kind of inherently Ghostbloody influence in some way.
Yeah.
And it makes you think that might be part of why he dropped that chunk of information in Rhythm of War to prep us for what he was planning to do with Lost Metal.
True.
So that we would have enough information to understand what exactly is going on.
And maybe it's just going to be like, we have Eatil, who is of southern descent. So maybe we'll have like a sort of maybe proto Ghostbloods or some sort, or something like, or the first group of real Ghostbloods on Scadrial, which are southerners or something like that. Maybe. So it's not like we're not going to have Rays show up. I think.
No, I don't think we're going to have Rays.
Out of the question.
But remember, they wouldn't be proto Ghostbloods because Eros 2 is after
but
first
like
fight.
not proto Ghostbloods, like the first Ghostbloods of some sort, like of a longer lineage of Ghostbloods, because Kelsier would have probably started.
Oh, okay, I see.
In Southern Scadrial.
The origin.
Yeah. I'm very excited for Lost Metal.
Maybe that's what Brandon was. Well, maybe that was Brandon, Peter, and Karen. Were referring to when they were saying that we would be excited for this book.
Quite possibly.
Well, and we're also gonna know more about Trell.
Yep.
Drop that too.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like any Ghostblood stuff that does turn up, though, is still going to be minor enough that it's sort of it's an Easter egg going backwards from Scadrial to Rorschach, whereas mostly we've seen them going the other way. Maybe I don't fully know if that's going to be the case, though, because like for an author that keeps saying that he doesn't want to create like quite cross universe enough yet that people have to read other things, he's really towing that line. And
yeah, he is.
And like I personally thought he crossed that line in Rhythm of War, but just like, what are we even gonna get in Lost Metal? I'm like, I'm not sure if you could keep saying you're not doing this, Brandon. If you've got Ghostbloods in Lost Metal, like particularly if like the name Vatica comes up, or like or like you need to understand the Ghostbloods from Rorschach to understand what the hell is going on in Lost Metal. Like, you can't just keep saying that these are separate still, Brandon.
Yeah. I was thinking about this actually just yesterday as I was thinking about the episode that we were going to record. And I think Brandon can still give us Ghostbloods in the Lost Metal and name drop them as Ghostbloods and Kelsier / Thydakar as their leader. And as long as what they are doing, as long as their motivations and agenda are framed through the eyes of Wax and Wayne and Steris and Mercy and maybe Milan, I think that's okay. Like, I'm imagining, okay, if I've never read Stormlight and I'm introduced to these people who call themselves Ghostbloods, and I'm like, oh, that's really clever because Kelsier, he's a ghost and Bloods. And okay, I don't need to know all of the things that they do on Roshar, or I hope I don't need to know all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so if Brandon can frame that in like their Scadrian agenda, then I think that's okay.
It's a little bit like the Sion in a box, Paleo in a box, as you will, in Rhythm of War. You don't need to have read Elantris to be able to follow what's happening there. You won't know what you won't know it's a Sion, and you won't know much beyond it can communicate with things, but is also alive, ? So it would probably be like that level of things. But yeah, the Easter eggs are definitely not hidden away anymore.
No.
It's like,
No, they're not.
what excites me about this is our interview with Brandon, where he did compare the Ghostbloods to tour books and about how he made a point of saying like when the person who is in charge is around, he can control, he can make sure it doesn't become a toxic work environment. That which is so Ghostbloods are like villainous, quote unquote, on Roshar because Kelsier doesn't have the direct day-to-day interaction with them. So I'm interested to see what the dynamic on Scadrial is, because Kelsier can have a more active moderating role, which is weird to think about in terms of Kelsier, but
no, only kill the nobles, okay? Just
the voice of reason and sanity. Yeah. It's interesting to think of them in like in their home turf, essentially.
Yeah.
In the HQ.
Yeah, it's exciting. I don't know if they're gonna be called Ghostbloods though. Like they might not even be called that necessarily on Scadrial. Like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe Brandon's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna call them the Ghostbloods, and I'm just gonna say it out loud. They're like, okay.
I kind of want to go back to that Bands of Morning temple scene, like where they have the symbols. If any of them could be interpreted as the Ghostblood symbol.
In rereading, it didn't seem like it, I will say.
Yeah,
No. Just some more questions.
So we have a bunch of WoBs from King's Daughter 613. And she asks, I wanted to know if any of the non-return cognitive shadows have had children. And Brandon says, yes.
Neat.
That's it.
And so this next one is also from King's Daughter 613.
Who's very nice.
When Warbreaker, aka Vasher, has the priest's daughter manipulate her breath, it doesn't appear to be permanently damaged afterwards. Like, Vivenna notes it flickers, but it seems to go back to what it was before. And Hoyd loses some when Odium does something very, very similar. Why is that? Brandon. Yes, Odium was being more invasive and more destructive, and is less practiced at what was happening.
Interesting. We previously had comments that Odium excised the breath.
Yeah.
It makes sense a shard could easily brute force it, whereas like magic users would have to find the, because they just have less power to throw around, right? So they have to have a much
Not only
Difference between using a surgeon's scalpel and a butter knife.
well, not only that, but Vasher didn't actually do anything. He taught the girl what she was supposed to do, and so it's way less invasive that way. Like she essentially, I imagine what happened there was she locked her memories in her breath, and her breath like changed shapes, so the memories were no longer accessible, essentially. And Odium was like, nope, this is mine.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Argent, let's go.
Oh, this is a chunker.
This is a chunker. We also need to read this out. This one.
I love this one.
Yeah,
Oh, listeners, you are in for a treat today. So much of
this is
my
a
voice
This
in
is
your
almost
ears.
like a sequel to our Hemalurgy table podcast, where we're like, what does this even mean? Oh, baby.
Okay. So, next piece comes once again from Page Runner, who has had many excellent questions at this event, who asks, the Hemalurgy table, you wrote down atium steals any power, lerasium is all abilities, nicrosil is investiture. So that's the things that those spikes steal. What is the difference between those? Hemalurgic atium, lerasium, and nicrosil. What's powers, abilities, and investiture? Brandon, people are invested in ways that do not give them active powers. So, for instance, everyone on Nalthis is invested. Everyone in the Cosmere is really. You want to steal their investiture, but they don't have a power. You are still ripping off a piece of their soul. So there's a distinction between the actual investiture that is in human beings and a specific power they have. So that distinction is pretty easy. You can also, with Hemalurgy, steal specific things. You can steal just general investiture. You can steal, if you want, this is where the kandra blessings come from. You can instead steal specific things that are not stealing allomancy. Stealing, for instance, someone's mental acuity. Page Runner follows up with, so abilities is like the half that's all strength, speed, and all that kind of stuff. These are abilities versus the metallic arts are all powers. Yes, says Brandon. Then investiture, is that off-world magics? No, it's raw power. Nicrosil is their soul. Nicrosil steals their soul, says Page Runner. Yes, a piece of their soul, essentially. So, how would you go about stealing an off-world power? Asks Page, and Brandon says, it's going to depend. A breath you would steal with Nicrosil. It's general investiture, it's what you are probably going to call that. You could forcibly remove someone's breath from them. The ability to be a Sandmaster, you would steal with the power ability.
This makes perfect sense to me. I know Page Runner said he was very confused, but
he was confused because he was in the middle of like listening to all of that.
Yeah.
But the way I read all of this is atium steals any power. Atium steals any magical power. Like it can steal any allomantic ability, any ferrochemical ability, any off-world magical ability, right? So I assume you would use atium to steal. I was going to say in the Hellbond, but I don't know.
Yeah, the sprenness. I mean, the spren still has to consent, but like something like that, though.
Yeah.
You could steal it, and then the spren could just say no and break the bond.
I don't want to get into a Hellbond because that's not an ability. That's more innate because it's a merging of spirit. So I don't want to go there. But like in the Star Wars universe, you could steal somebody's ability to use the Force.
Sure.
For example, I think that would be atium. And then lerasium is any ability. And the way Brandon talks about it, I get the feeling that ability is like attributes.
Yeah, I was going to use the word attributes.
That's the word I would use.
Yeah.
Strength, speed, mental acuity, things like that.
Even spiritual attributes, maybe. I don't know.
Basic character sheet
maybe.
stats.
Yeah. And then nicrosil is kind of innate investiture, right? You're just going into the soul and you're stealing somebody's, breath is the example that Brandon gives. But maybe you can also steal things like somebody's empathy. Good example.
Nicrosil? No.
See, the way I'm looking at it is more like, and maybe some of y'all are going to disagree with this, but say you're an Allomancer. And you take a nicrosil spike and you stab another Allomancer, and then you shove that spike into yourself. It makes you a stronger Allomancer. that's kind of what the way I'm looking at the potential for nicrosil spikes.
Yeah, it steals raw power, your like raw connection to the shards. Like it could probably, if you're stab at Radiant holding Stormlight, you could probably steal the Stormlight.
Totally.
It's a terrible use of a spike, but it's not. It's just raw investiture. Power. It's not a specific thing.
General stuff.
In my example, if, say you are a coin shot and you're stealing power from a smoker, it's still going to make your own native power more stronger because you're just stealing the power potential. You're not stealing the specific ability. So you're still making yourself a stronger, you're giving yourself more investiture, so you are a stronger Alamancer, but it has absolutely nothing to do with what the person you stole from can do. And this could be debated till the cows come home.
But also the empathy, I would say, would be definitely a more lerasium thing.
Okay, let's scratch the empathy example, because I didn't like it even as I was saying it. But stealing breath, stealing Stormlight, these are exactly Nicrosil's realm.
Yeah, exactly.
I do really like this WoB because it clears up a lot. It does slightly nerf atium from what we initially thought it did. Because originally we thought atium just steals everything. Like anything that you can use another spike for, you can also use atium. This restricts it just to magical abilities.
Still pretty good, though.
Which is interesting. Yeah.
But this still didn't quite clear up to me. It's like, because that might just be like an author thing or writing thing. But on the chart, we have for atium any ability, any power, or whatever it was. And for lerasium, all abilities.
Yep.
So,
I don't know.
Does lerasium steal multiple things at once? Like it just takes away everything you have? And it's like that. That could be like that will be the next interesting question about those, I feel.
So I had a conversation with Paige about this. And the way I think of it is atium. So because atium is so powerful, right? You can steal any magical ability, and those are very powerful things. You can only get one at a time. But with lerasium, because you're stealing, more subdued attributes, right? You're getting a boost to your strength, speed, mental speed, whatever. You take all of that
from a person,
and when you spike yourself, you either get to choose which one you get, right? So you've stolen everything, but you can only have one active at a time. Or what I believe is you just steal everything, right? Gaining the strength of another person and the speed of another person is nowhere near as powerful as getting the ability to do sand mastery. And so what you've stolen is you are permanently more powerful than somebody without a spike, but you are not as powerful as somebody with an atium spike when they are making use of that atium spike, because that's such a flashy display of power.
Sure. That said, still stupid. Just ingest the lerasium. Much better use of the metal. Let's be honest. Why would you ever do this? Who discovered this? I don't know. Anyway, that all makes sense to me. It's just the any versus all that is a little weird. Could easily be like the lerasium spike is charged with all these things, but in the right bind point, you only get one of them. Maybe, I don't know. Like, who knows?
Could be that.
I doubt we will ever see this. To be honest,
that I actually do like, because it preserves more of what you stole.
Hey, I like it. I like that. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Let's go with that. Sure.
The next question was my question for Brandon, and what I've always wanted to know is, in Era 1, there are the Inquisitors. They have jars full of blood that they put spikes in to stop the decay. The thing is, when you take blood out of a human body, it goes from being all liquidy to being all clumpy, because it clots, because that's what happens when you stop it moving and expose it to air. And just wasn't sure if you could just store spikes in clotted blood and that would work, or if it had to be fresh blood. And in that case, how in the world does Era 1 Scadrial have anticoagulants? Like, they don't have refrigeration. This makes no sense. They can't keep it liquid. So I'm very glad to say that Brandon said, yes, you can use clotted blood.
Oh, great.
And stopped me having an aneurysm in front of him in JordanCon, because, that would have been lots of fun. We kind of continued the conversation, and he said that you can also put it in a piece of meat, because basically you just need to trick the hemalurgic spike into thinking it's in a body. And it's a bit dumb, apparently, if it thinks clotted blood is regular blood. But Brian said that's okay. And this led to what is now my favorite Brandon quote that I really need him to put in a book so I can put it on the Copper Mind, because I don't think the Keepers will let me just put a WoB quote as
Probably
the top
not.
quote on the Hemalurgy page.
Probably not.
But what he said was, yes, you're just tricking the stupid piece of metal that has a little bit of extra investiture and has become slightly self-aware, and so it keeps its charge. Modern day, they have better ways of doing this that they have started using. Because clearly, yes, this is a very inefficient way, and I don't know how you're getting enough blood in those jars to begin with, or I kind of do because they're Inquisitors.
Well, yeah, that's the easy part for Inquisitors.
I find a vampire.
Modern day, they have moved past just having jars of blood around, because not everyone lives in an occult novel.
You can put
I
a
like
steak,
the Eric
but I'm very pleased.
out
You
of
can
that
put a
too that
steak
you haven't said.
in the steak. Easy.
Yeah.
Problem solved. Hemalurgic decay done. Easy.
You've been very proud of the steak.
I am. I was very proud of
As
that
well,
joke.
he should be.
Yeah. I'm glad. Thank you, Rosemary. Cool. Well, this makes a lot of sense. I know you have wanted to ask this for the entirety of our relationship, I think, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember ranting to you one day when I was at work, and I can't remember why I ended up on it, but I spent like 20 minutes of an hour lunch break talking to Eric where I was just going on about this.
Yeah. It's like you study this stuff or something. Hey.
Yeah. Who would have thought?
Mm-hmm.
So we have another question from King's Daughter 613, which was Kelsier directly involved in causing the showdown with Bloody Ten that ended up with Jessie dying? To which Brandon answered that no, as I've written it right now, no, indirectly involved possibly, but this is not an outcome he wanted. It is not something he influenced, and not something I would even say that he was aware was happening. I haven't written Secret History 2, so that's possible but I don't have a plan for him to be involved right now. So it's nice to know that Secret History might or is probably coming, because he says he hasn't written it yet, not if he ever writes it.
Oh, that is true. He has mentioned this before, but
yeah.
We might be splitting hairs on that wording right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is signing line.
Yeah,
this is all off the cuff.
Yeah.
But
what I find more interesting is that, to me, this implies that Secret History 2, if that ever becomes a thing, is still going to be Kelsier's Secret History.
That's true. Yeah, it does kind of sound
Because-
like that. Yeah.
There have been ideas in the fandom that Secret History 2 might be Marsh's time between the Catasandra and Era 2, essentially.
I mean, we could have dual point of view too.
Yeah, totally could.
Yeah.
But at least Kelsier would be involved, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
So good to know that it's just Harmony screwing with things, and not Kelsier this time for once.
Yeah.
There is one line,
Mm-hmm.
but this is not an outcome he wanted, that could be interpreted two different ways.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
One where it's just like, he didn't plan for this to happen, or he doesn't like how this happened.
Yeah.
And I think it's more likely the former, but it would be interesting if it's the latter. Because it's like, what about this doesn't he like? Does he not want Sazed to have a champion?
That's what I was just thinking. I wonder how much of it is tied in with Sazed and Wax being Sazed's champion, and just the series of events that led Wax to where he is, like, do very much revolve around the stuff with Bloody Tan. And yeah, I could see Kelsier being displeased
I can see
that Wax exists in terms of how he interacts with Harmony.
It's very possible.
Kelsier is a very interesting position where he is playing on a very big stage with very big players, and he's nothing to scoff at, but also he's no shard.
He's not a shard.
All right, and it's my turn. All right, so yet another WoB from King's Daughter, who is apparently competing with Page Runner for most WoBs.
Pretty much.
King's Daughter, if a cognitive shadow or a splinter gained connection to the physical realm, could they just transition through a perpendicularity to manifest a physical form, or is something else required? And Brandon says something else would be required because but that would take you a long way. It's going to depend on the situation, right? And she says, because Ishar was doing something where, like, he was connecting spren. And Brandon says, yes, Ishar was doing something. And so, for instance, spren are going to be played a little differently than a cognitive shadow would be played. Like, cognitive shadows, that's just not going to be enough. But spren is much closer. This has to do with how much investiture is involved and how they're connected and things like this. But it's not quite enough in most cases. And she says, so Ishar is doing something in addition to just connecting the spren to the physical realm. And Brandon says, yes, he was indeed doing something more.
That's interesting. So, like, spren are like pure investiture, so that makes sense that, like, because I guess what Ishar has to do, right, is essentially have that investiture manifest a body, essentially, right, in the physical.
Yes.
So you kind of need a high level of power for that to happen in a way. That makes sense.
He's definitely doing connection shenanigans.
That's at least
some
there.
Other piece in there. And we know he definitely has the tools at his disposal to do the connection shenanigans, given that he can just go, I'm going to steal your hellband bond.
He can do that, yeah.
But there's something else there, which is, it probably took him a while to figure out how, which is why he's doing it now. And it wasn't, doing it centuries ago. He's up to something.
It's up to something.
Something very creepy.
So one thing that I find interesting is that spren have the ability to manifest in the physical realm when they're bonded to a Night Radiant, as long as they're manifesting as a weapon. And that appears to be a strongly connection thing, right? So
sure, yeah.
A spren bonds with a radiant, and as their connection grows stronger, the spren eventually gains the ability to show up in the physical realm, as long as the spren is a piece of metal. And so I wonder if Ishar would be able to pull a spren through and manifest that spren as, let's say, a shard blade, like forcibly. Which is obviously not what he's interested in. Like he wants those spren to have a body that can last for a long time for whatever reason. But I wonder if just with the power of connection, that is something that is within his abilities.
Probably.
Yeah, I think yes. And that's a good thing to remind me of just the amount of investiture that spren are. And the answer is a lot, because they manifest into sharp blades.
We have like fabrials that are radiant spren that are manifested as metal in the cognitive in the physical realm without a radiant bond. Presumably, like that. How would there be a remaining bond when the radiants are all dead for centuries? So I feel like it probably would just be enough to connect them somehow enough to the physical realm for them to manifest as metal. So yeah.
I wonder if it was the bondsmiths that ended up actually creating all the fabrials. And so we are
maybe, but like maybe. The soulcasters were definitely tied to Amia.
Yeah.
So it's like the Amians were involved somehow.
I don't expect to see a lot of those in book 5. Maybe back half though.
Hopefully.
another interesting thing about this swap is I find that just that spren are gonna be played a little differently than cognitive shadows. So it is easier for spren. So what Isha is doing only has limited usefulness to him because he will need even more than that to do whatever he wants to do, assuming he wants to do something to himself. So yeah,
I don't think he's doing something to himself. I don't think so. The more I hear about it, the less I like it. He has some plan with spren, and I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
But I don't know. One last one for this episode. Jafu, who could not be here on this recording, asked, and this is a thing that we have debated heavily in our Keeper chat since Oathbringer, and we thought Rhythm of War would help. Did Shallan change her last name when she got married? And yet, if you're wondering if this is to rename the Coppermine article, yes, this is exactly what that is about. Brandon says, you do not change your last names if you are, Joff says, in Yakaved. Brandon, yes. So she did not change her last name. She is still Shallan Devar. And there's also some weirdness there in the line of succession stuff as well, which wouldn't be the case if she'd been from Alethkar and of a certain proper, But the fact that she's not, she would keep her original name and would not be in succession for the throne. Shallan Devar! Mission solved!
What about Navani?
Okay, yeah, Navani's
Navani
weird.
was from Alethkar, though. So
Yes.
Navani is from their culture, and it looks to me like the rule is that, well, because Shallan is not Alethi, then she doesn't change her last name and she doesn't go into the succession line.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah.
But Navani does not appear to be part of the line of succession. She is never mentioned in terms of succession. So
yeah, I don't think she's part of the line of succession.
Yeah, I don't think she is either.
She kind of is the beginning of that line. Like she was the queen.
Yeah, but that's not how it works. If you're the queen consort to a king, that doesn't put you necessarily in line with the succession. I mean, I guess if there were literally no other heirs and everyone else was dead, maybe. But
it's I understand that. But why bring it up in terms of Shallan? Because Shallan would be in the same situation.
And it may have been just him trying to clarify that no, she's not in the succession, even if she wouldn't have been. But also, Navani may have muddied the waters when she married Dalinar, and they're like, you married your brother-in-law. We don't want you to be a queen because that's just
and
weird.
the political situations was weird.
That
might have disqualified.
I've got a bit of
her
a hot
from
take.
Okay, Jess. What's your hot take?
The way that it's talked about where Navani, Gavilar, and Dalinar knew each other when they were quite a bit younger kind of gave me the impression that she is a Colin by birth, just from a different branch of the family.
Yeah,
and the hot take is, of course, into family marriage. Which to me, it makes sense that she wouldn't necessarily be in the line of succession anymore if they're trying to go through this very particular line of colons, but she is still a colon both by marriage and by birth.
Yeah, I mean, if they're second cousins, sure.
I think my read has been that if there are two reasons that Shallan gets to keep her Devar name. One of them is she is not a Alethi, and so she doesn't have to follow their traditions. Two, even though Adolin is in line of succession, Adolin is not the king. So if Shallan had married King Adolin Kholin, then she would have had to become a Kholin. But because he's only a high prince, then that's not enforced.
I think the way Brandon is going here, and of certain proper, that is more going about how Shallan is from a lesser house in Yakaved, and not that Adolin isn't of such a high standing.
Yeah,
that's
I think
my read on it.
The succession stuff sounds like about Veden royalty. That's how I read this. That's if she was the princess of Yakaved, then maybe that could change things and make things weird potentially. There's absolutely room for weirdness, but in general, Vedens don't change their last name.
Yeah,
this is also something we're drilling down into very granular detail
Yes.
that Brandon may have gone.
Probably not.
Why do you even ask
Look,
these questions?
I am just happy
in the back of his mind.
We're not changing Shallan to Shallan colon on the wiki. That's fantastic. People will probably complain about spoilers if we change that anyway. So this just makes things a lot easier. Thanks, Brandon. That's great.
That's really all we needed was.
That's
Did
all I care
Shallan change
about.
your last name? Yes or no? No. Okay. Move on.
Yep, pretty much.
Yep.
Pretty much. Cool. So we are going to do another one of these, which will come out the following week, so not 2 weeks from now. So I think that'll be good for, so you get some words of Brandon and not just taking up all of August. So, let's move on to who's that Cosmere character?
This character is from Roshar.
Menace, Tien,
Taln.
Raise.
Void in drag on a horse.
It's time for who's that Cosmere character? Caw. All right, welcome to Who's That Cosmere Character, the game show where you send in 5 clues and a character to WTCC@17shard.com. And these panelists have a chance to guess who's that Cosmere character. All right, so this first one is sent by Oliver Newcomb, which is
Recognize that name.
Yeah. And clue 1. The character has multiple sons.
Dalinar.
Not Dalinar.
Hasina.
Who?
Hasina.
Oh, not Hasina, no.
General Carl.
It's not General Kyle. He's got a lot. That's true.
That was going to be my second guess.
That's true.
What?
Rosemary.
Let's see. Character has multiple sons.
Lirin.
It's not Lirin.
Oh,
All
great.
right.
Let's go through all the spouses.
Yeah, Dalinar's wife, Evie. Evie, yes.
No, it's not Evie. Clue 2. This character uses an arcane art.
King Iadon.
It's not King Iadon.
Also, I don't know if we would count the Mad Prince as...
I don't think he exists canonically.
I don't
I
think
didn't
he
think
does.
about him, though.
Yeah.
Is an arcane art.
Well, uses an arcane art.
Yes, but what defines an arcane art
Mhm.
in a world
Straff
full of
Investiture.
magic?
It's not Straff.
No.
I would say...
Nothing.
I mean, I find that clue a little vague.
Okay. So would Fabrials count? Like using Fabrials in general?
I would say no. I would say
Okay.
this person uses a magic system.
Okay.
Like an invested
Okay.
art, I assume is what they meant.
Was it multiple sons?
Multiple
Or two
sons.
sons.
Multiple sons.
It's multiple, 2 or more.
I'm going to go with Tindwyl because she had children. How many sons? I don't know, but
Probably multiple
Yeah.
sons, but it's
few.
not
Yeah.
typical.
yeah.
Yeah. I like that guess, though. I think it's safe to say she had multiple sons.
Mhm.
Or she had a whole lot of daughters because she
Yeah.
had a whole
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
I would take the same route right there and go spook.
It's not Spook. That's true. It's true.
That is.
Also makes sense.
Take a stab in the dark and say Rashek, even though we don't know for sure whether it's multiple sons.
It's not
Here
Russia.
it is.
At least.
It's not
But
Russia.
I'm sure that's not correct.
Playing to the host, I see.
Uh-huh. Yes, because these are totally things I made. Clue 3. This character dies in combat.
Oh, great.
Are you sure it's not Tindwyl?
I am sure it's not Tyndall, yes.
I don't remember. So she had multiple children. I don't remember if there were multiple sons involved in that, but I'm gonna guess Karate.
No.
One of the
No,
Yeah,
it's,
okay.
it's not her.
She had one daughter.
Okay. She was a mother. I remember that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They went and stole some food, and
They
she was
did.
like, "Oh,
That is true.
my kid."
Oh,
Oh God, I don't.
oh, crap! What's his name?
Description.
Fine.
Oh, I can't.
Is it
Kenton's
Praxton?
father. Kenton's father.
It is
Ian-
Fraxton. It is Fraxton, and Ian I think he's stealthed in there. It is Lord Braxton, the Lord Mastral. The other clues were this character was a member of a government. And clue 5 was this character was betrayed.
I don't feel so bad now about having like absolutely no ability to think of a character name because I never would have gotten anything that I said.
Yes, Rosemary?
Yeah, I think it hit Ian and I about the same time, but I haven't read the prose version of White Sand, so I don't know that I ever really knew the dude's name. I just know, he's Kenton's dad.
Oh, yeah.
And it's maybe mentioned in there once or twice, but
If you said Kenton's dad before Ian, I would have you're the winner, but Ian.
Because I'm sitting there going, what's his name?
Yeah. Cool.
I'm going to consider it a spiritual tie.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, in the spiritual realm, all times are one, so everyone won at the same time.
You can take the consolation prize of knowing that you had the guess, even though Ian spoke first.
Yep. All right. This second one is sent in by Madeline Riney Wiki. I'm sorry, Madeline.
Oh boy.
I don't know. Clue 1. This character is rude.
Kenton.
It's not Kenton.
As
Dalinar.
It's not Naz. It's not Dalinar.
Wayne.
It is Wayne! Yay!
I didn't want to guess Wayne.
Wayne popped in as my second guess. So.
Nice. Clue 2. This character makes snarky comments. Clue 3. This character loves to drink beer, wine, whiskey, etc. Clue 4. This character can heal themselves. / this character has recovered from many severe injuries. And clue 5, this character is not Rosharan. Cool.
Yeah, I think we went with. There's no way we wouldn't have gotten it before 5.
Oh yeah. I think y'all would. Yeah, definitely.
The healing thing.
I think we would have gone to 4 at the very least, and then all be shouting.
I feel like clue 5 should have been clue 1 just to keep us flailing for a hot minute.
That's true. Yeah. You got to put in not Rosharan. That's right.
No, I think these were fine.
Yeah, it's fine. I think it's
fine. No, it's good.
To keep with White Sand.
I say that as a person who got it. So.
Yeah, this is great. It was great. Cool. Well, way to keep up the pace on the episode. Our next one is going to be from our priority queue, which you can go to if you are one of our heralds on Patreon. I promise you will not be tortured by spirits of praise in relation with this. Probably, maybe. So
not in relation to this, at least.
No. Not in relation to this. Yep. I can't speak for your other oaths, but not this one. And this one is sent in by our herald Greyhive.
Hey.
And this one, it's phrased like this. So, clue 1: I hold a spren bond.
Hoyd.
It's not Hoyd.
Dalinar.
It's not Dalinar.
I'm going to kind of throw away my guess and say Ishar because he does get a grip on.
I was just thinking that
Stormfather boss.
Same.
It's not Ishar though.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess Chiri.
It's not Chiri. Yeah.
I will approach this from the other direction and say Ivory.
It's not Ivory. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Does he have a spren bond or does he have a human bond?
What is a spren bond, Ian?
That's a good question.
Is it a spren bond or is it a hell bond?
I don't know.
I was thinking with the Ishar because that popped to my mind as well, but I went the more gruesome route of, well, he's like pulling them into the physical, and that's like something with the spren bond. So he has a spren bond, just not in the traditional sense that we're mostly thinking.
Yeah. Clue 2: I have a gem heart.
Reluna. The island.
Is Reluna. Whoa.
Sure.
Yeah. So Reluna is one of the Taina in the Reshi Sea.
I very quickly went through. It was like, what other creatures with gem hearts have names?
Yeah, it's true.
Chiri and Reluna.
That's true. Yeah. Good point.
Well, and my listeners could be Venli or Relaine.
Oh, that's true.
No, yeah.
I just text him or
Oh,
whatever,
I'm glad you
yeah.
went down the right path on that one, Ian.
And I forgot that horses are horses.
Clue 3 is I am worshipped as a god. I've been visited by Axes the Collector, and I live in the Reshi Sea.
Nice.
Nice. Good one.
Yeah.
Nice.
Good job, Greyhive.
Fun.
Great. All right. So you can find us on 17shard.com for all your news, discussion, theories, and fun that you could ever want. You can discuss these words of Brandon on our forums or Discord, whatever you want. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud. You can subscribe on YouTube. I don't know what we can put in the comments. It's just, I don't know.
Put in the comments below if you think God Metal's changing names is stupid.
There you go. Perfect.
Well,
how
should be
how freaked out are you that Taln didn't break? How earth shattering do you feel?
What is your stance on the Alethi line of succession?
Great, perfect. I'm sure they have such strong opinions.
Be happy with me about stupid bits of metal.
Oh yes,
Stupid
that's
bits of
true.
metal.
That's true. So you got lots of options.
Jess, whose current Discord nickname is Lady Stupid Bit of Metal Spike.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool.
I'm so pleased. I'm just so pleased.
Yep. And you can leave us a review on iTunes, and you can support us on Patreon. And so we will see you next week for more WoBs. See you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Caw.